Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Sunday. Yes, Sunday, the 15th of November, new moon. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show today is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest rock salt provider. And folks, it's not just rock salt. We're talking about mag ice melting pellets and flakes, Petalo premium snow and ice melter, biomelt, geomelt, along with spreaders, shovels, snow blowers, anything you need to get through winter storms that lie ahead. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, 631-756-1125, just north of the Southern State Parkway, or go to the website omnitruevalue.com for more information. I have to tell you, Joe, I must say, I'm actually, I guess, humbled by the weather we're seeing here in the middle of November. To think that we're on, what is this, the third or fourth named storm tropical system in this month? Certainly the third. Uh, Another major. The folks in Central America, Nicaragua, Southern Honduras are going to, I'm sorry, Nicaragua and Southern Honduras going to see the second, possibly Category 4 hurricane to make landfall in a week. This is nuts. This is just an incredible tropical storm season, and we may still not be done.
Yep, you're right. You're right. This could very possibly go right on into December, and I'm not talking about maybe a tropical storm here or maybe later in the month some kind of a tropical cyclone. I mean this. I mean, you're absolutely right. This is now we're halfway through, or just about halfway through November. Four storms already this month, and it shows no sign really of quitting. And a major, the second major hurricane, not in July or August or September, but
September.
November.
I know it's
That's
nuts.
unprecedented, ridiculous,
And
crazy.
the Hurricane Center on their latest forecast taking it to 120 knots. So that's just shy of that's 145 miles an hour, I think, 140 or 145. I mean, I guess it's not out of the question that it could, get pretty close to a Cat 5. It's just crazy. This is crazy stuff we're seeing, and it's all La Nina driven. And again, just the fact that it's happening here in the middle of November is astounding to me.
And if you look at the overall view of the Atlantic Ocean, it's not just Iota. We also still have Theta languishing somewhere north of the Canary Islands. So I mean, it's not just that we have a major hurricane, but we also have two tropical cyclones in mid-November.
Yeah,
Ridiculous, crazy.
well. Let's start with that. We've got our own weather issues today, by the way, for the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. The Storm Prediction Center actually has us in a marginal risk for severe weather. I'm not so surprised by it, but I guess I am a little bit surprised, as I would have thought yesterday they would have done something. I mean, they have the general area of thunderstorms. They didn't have any risk area indicate. I just kind of thought, based on what I was looking at yesterday and even on late Friday, that maybe a marginal risk would be in order. And it may get rocky when this front comes through late today.
Oh, no question, no question. In fact, when I was looking at, first of all, they only had one forecaster doing the convective outlook yesterday. That was Gleason. I don't know what his or her first name is.
Jackie.
It were Jackie. But today they had three people, Grams, Edwards, and Lightman, work on this forecast. Now, yesterday, considering that there was no marginal or no slight risk of any severe weather, still, what Gleason came up with was a very large area, with us almost right smack in the middle of general thunderstorm coverage. And he was talking about how the parameters were just not right for mentioning anything in terms of severe weather. Maybe an isolated storm might bring some damaging wind gusts, but really, yeah, we may see some lightning and thundering. And now to jump into the marginal range, and I'll tell you what, Joe, from what I've been looking at, I wouldn't be surprised if in the midday update they increase that to maybe in some cases a slight risk of severe, because this cold front that's coming through early tonight is going to be loaded for bear. It's got it all. It's got the gusty, strong winds. It's got the sudden outburst or sudden burst of precipitation. We could see some moderate and heavy rain for a short interval of time. And also, it has the potential with the rapid forward motion and also the lifting out ahead of it of the potential for convective activity. And for a few hours tonight, folks, if you're not already aware of this, for a few hours, I'd say 8 o'clock to midnight, somewhere in that time frame for the tri-state area, it's going to get nasty for a while out where you happen to be. And I don't want anybody to come back tomorrow and say nobody told us that it was going to be this bad or whatever. We're telling you it's going to be this bad for a few hours early tonight.
All right. So let's start with Iota because the Hurricane Center just put out its advisory, and it's clear on the satellite loop that this thing has been strengthening rapidly and continues to strengthen rapidly. It's pinched down in that the southwestern part of the Gulf of Mexico. I'm sorry, the of the Caribbean, and it's taking advantage of just wide open everything. The wind shear is light. The Caribbean water temperatures, in spite of the fact that we had a Category 4 go through here just recently, a week ago. Apparently, there wasn't a whole lot of upwelling, or if there was, it was taken care of over the last over 3 or 4 days that followed. Water temperatures are just under 30 Celsius or 86 Fahrenheit. So everything here is on course. The inflow is terrific. You look at the satellite presentation here. The signature of this storm is excellent on the satellite, and we're continuing to see a convection exploding around what looks to be a well-defined developing core. So would not be at all shocked to see this get to a strong Cat 4 before landfall. And the good news for the U.S., at least with this, is because of the fact that this is being driven by a strong upper air ridge to the north. If you just kind of follow the flow of clouds north of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and Cuba, those clouds are going east to west. There's a narrow ridge in here. It's a narrow ridge, but it's a strong ridge, and that is just pretty much the driving force. It's kind of I'm using the color black here, which really doesn't work when you have when you have nighttime satellites. So let's see if I can switch this over to something a little bit nicer from the standpoint of color.
How about yellow?
Yep. I could do yellow.
Hmm.
You want off yellow, or you want a bright
canary.
yellow?
How about canary
Sunshine yellow, canary yellow, anything other than something that's a poor excuse for plain yellow. Okay. Here we go. So I got the yellow one up here. Hang on. Yeah. All right, let me clean this.
We could be like Bob Ross on PBS.
All right. So there's there's this narrow east-west ridge here. So there's nothing that cracks this upper high to pull this storm northward. So it's basically going to be driven west. And in fact, the ridge actually strengthens a little bit in time, and that might probably wind up turning this more southwest over time and take it out on the Pacific side. Although, even if that happens, Joe, we're at the time of year that it won't regenerate on the other side. The between the La Nina conditions making it unfavorable on the Pacific side for anything to develop. Plus, it's the time of year. Usually, the East Pacific shuts down before the Atlantic does, and I think that'll hold. So we won't see anything on the other side.
I'm just. What are you saying to me? My my light is very bright.
It looks like you have a big white spot on your head.
It looks like I have a big white spot on my head.
Well, the lighting director has spoken, Joe. You need to take care of your white spot. But right now we have maps up, so you don't have to.
That's better.
That's better? This is better, Joe.
Okay.
All right.
All
Now,
right, so let's
as you were saying, Joe,
no, what I was saying was we don't have any worries about this. This is not going to redevelop on the other side. So
no, it's not. It's not. The Pacific is very chilly now. So,
right,
and as you mentioned with the La Nina
yeah, it ain't
pattern,
happening.
right?
I
How many hurricanes do you know off the top of your head? And I'm sure you don't have a bright white spot on your head, but do you have any idea how many hurricanes the Pacific has seen this year of 2020, or
not many.
very few?
Very few. I think they had a dozen named storms, but maybe only three of them, 3 or 4 of them got to hurricane
Yes,
status.
yes.
Meanwhile, the Hurricane Center's forecast, it's been pretty consistent. It's actually taking the track almost. It's a little bit further south than. No, it's very close. It's almost identical to the track that Ada took as a major coming inland. We've got the warnings up for pretty much the same areas in Nicaragua and Honduras. And then you see the bend more to the southwest. And if you think back to what happened with Ada, where we had that large gyre that was spinning in the Caribbean, so that the center uh, basically reformed in the Northwest Caribbean, we don't have the gyre anymore. So that's another reason why I don't think that this is going to be any problem for areas up to the north, or looking at this to break through the Yucatan Channel and heading into the Gulf of Mexico. I just don't think the upper air is there for it.
I agree. I agree. In fact, with the lack of the gyre, let's put it this way: when the gyre was there, that whole area, the Caribbean, it looked like it was a mess. And
Yeah,
now it's almost now that somebody has taken a giant hefty, you know, paper or whatever like that, and soaked up a lot of the mess that made up the gyre. And now,
you mean like Bounty, the quicker picker upper,
exactly, I like bounty.
and it's strong too.
Yes.
So yeah, so we'll get rid of this in the next several days, and then we'll look forward to whatever the rest of this hurricane season has to offer. Meantime, take a look at this storm, Joe, that's up in the north, moving through the northern lakes and south of James Bay. This is a rather wrapped up storm system, and the trailing cold front. The satellite signature here also very impressive. And certainly, if you looked at this and didn't really know, if you didn't know what else was going on, just looked at the satellite and said, tried to figure out what the weather was going to be, you'd look at this and say, I'm thinking maybe it's going to get rough late today. The line is setting up already. The look of the line on the satellite is already setting up back to the west in western PA down into West Virginia and eastern Kentucky.
It looks like Joe, I mean, kind of reminiscent of we were talking about this a few days ago of the storm that affected and unfortunately led to the end of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I did a little check of the surface maps, and there was a very intense storm over Lake Superior on that particular day, and this storm is every bit like that. So
Just the
I
low
hope
is a
that
little further north, I think.
I hope that there's no major freighters, let's say, that are out of frigates that are out over Lake Superior right now, because it's probably very nasty on the open waters with that system right now at this particular moment in time.
Let's give it another view from Canada on the Canada satellite loop. Now this is from yesterday. I'm going to refresh this in a moment, but this is up until about 8 o'clock last night, and you see the system was starting to organize in and around Lake Winnipeg and the clouds that extended down into the northern plains and western lakes. And we'll give it a fresh update here and take a look at what the loop has to offer. And there we go. And yeah, I mean, you look at this; it's really impressive how this whole system, this storm system, and there's also, by the way, take a look up in the Canadian Northwest. There's a looks like a powerhouse low coming in north of Vancouver Island, but still, it's a fairly strong storm that is coming ashore. And I'm thinking that's also south of Juneau. Looking at the geography, yeah, just coming in south of Juneau. So I was kind of wondering whether there might be some snow going on in southern Alaska. What do they call that? The Panhandle of Alaska? Do they call that the
Um,
Panhandle?
I guess you could call it a pan. It's a skinny handle. That's for sure.
It's also the handles on an angle. So I mean, whereas the Florida Panhandle and the Oklahoma Panhandle are east-west, this is
Yeah,
more, north, northwest,
Northwest.
south, southeast.
Right,
It's a
right.
bent handle.
Yeah,
Yeah. Also, look at the streaming moisture coming in straight out of the Pacific. Looks like a bit of a fire hose there underneath that low, streaming moisture into the northwest, and that's going to be an issue with regards to rain going forward because the weather prediction folks showing some rather solid rain over the next 7 days from the northern half of California, but all the way up into western Washington with several to many inches, and of course translating to snow as you go east into the northern Rockies. Here in the Northeast, this is front end loaded, so this is all about whatever we get today and tonight with this front going by, quarter to a half an inch. The one thing, Joe, that keeps the rain down for this thing is moving rather quickly, which kind of explains the wind issues that we're going to have, plus the thunderstorms. But it should move out quickly, so there really isn't a whole lot of time for this to put down a substantial precip, at least from southern New England southward. You go up into northern New England, it might be more on the order of a half to three-quarters of an inch there. They'll have more time in this. But for us, it's this quick shot from late today. And also, we've been seeing some of the flooding from Florida from Iota this week, just some scattered precip going on over the next 7 days. Nothing to add to the rainfall woes there. And I just also want to let's bring up the radar and take a look at what's happening as of almost lunchtime. Yeah, I mean, you look at this, you look at the radar, Joe. The radar signature, the echoes, has strong thunderstorms written all over it.
right, right. Now,
Three,
normally, if this were the summertime, these thunderstorms would be peaking right about the time they're arriving in the tri-state area. But of course, now it's November. The sun goes down at about 4:30 in the afternoon, so it's already gotten considerably cooler. But still, I maintain that the fast forward speed and the lift that's occurring out ahead, it's kind of like because of the fast forward speed. Sometimes you could use the analogy of a wooden plane. If you've ever done some carpentry, and you notice that if you move it fast enough, the chips, so to speak, the curl of wood out ahead of the blade becomes exceptionally long and pronounced. That's the kind of situation we have this afternoon, this evening. It's moving very rapidly, and the lift is still going to be maintained into the early part of the night in spite of the diurnal cooling. So, yeah, don't be surprised if you hear a few peals of thunder, see some flashes of lightning. I'm not I'm not thinking that this is going to be like leading to tornadic activity, but still, there could be some brief intervals where the winds will gust to over 40 and 50 and 60. It could be damaging winds. There could be some trees coming down, maybe some power lines. That's why I say be advised that early tonight we're going to be in line for some rather active weather. It's not going to last very
the
long, but when it's here, it's going to be rough.
this is I've just pulled up the upper air. I mean, this is a bit of a powerhouse shortwave that's coming through here with this upper low and the strong storm that's in southern Canada. So that's the driver here. Even though it's in the middle of November. And we've seen in recent years, by the way, in a number of instances in the back of my mind where we've seen some severe weather outbreaks occur in this month. I want to bring up, I haven't looked at it, it's the first time I'm looking at it, Joe. I wanted to bring up your favorite map, which is the FGen. And
Oh, oh,
I'm
Joe, if you take a look at the FGen,
it's
the
yeah. I
NAM
mean,
FGen at
it's that look at that. That's impressive.
the
That
850 FGen especially
that
on the NAM.
usually you see the line strands. I mean, here it's like as if somebody just took a paintbrush and or the whole paint can and just threw it onto the canvas
Correct.
for coverage. This is it shows you that the push behind it is substantial. The cold air that's coming down on the backside of this is a fairly potent shot, and you have a very
Yeah,
strong shortwave in play here.
that's the thing, Joe. That when I saw that last night, I was sitting here at about 10:30, and I took a look at some of the maps, and I'm so happy. You have no idea how happy I am that all these maps are coming in an hour earlier now. And I saw that FGen, and I said, you know what? I think on my Facebook pages, I have two of them, my professional and also my personal. I said, I think I ought to write some kind of a statement about this upcoming evening because this does not look pretty. And I'm surprised that the Weather Service they have they don't have wind advisories for the Hudson Valley. I would have put up a wind advisory even for the Hudson Valley for the heck of it.
Yeah,
Um,
they have it up for the coastal counties of New Jersey, southern Connecticut, and Long Island for this evening for the southerly winds this evening ahead of the front with gusts of 50.
and the five boroughs as well, especially Manhattan. I mean, I hope that they have all of those construction cranes, battened down for this evening because this is going to be something.
Yeah, no question. And by the way, the other thing is I just noticed this the warm advection coming up from the south is actually not too shabby here because you're going from we went from -3 degrees Celsius at 8:50 at 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon at the 850 millibar level, of roughly the 5,000 foot level, folks. So we went from a temperature of about want to do it in Fahrenheit 25 to 0 to 32 by yesterday evening at 7 o'clock to almost Joe. It goes to almost 50 plus 10 in
Right.
a very very short period of time. The other thing is I've noticed also is in terms of the timing here, the models are have been slowing down the arrival, and I think what impressed me usually you get these storms that come through after 7 or 8 o'clock. In the summertime, they do lose the daytime heating. But again, this time around, we're seeing the compensation of the shortwave, the strong upper air feature that's involved. And those thunderstorms maintain their strength. In fact, it looks like they almost get a little stronger as they approach. After, if for timing wise, they don't even reach western New Jersey until I don't know, 6 o'clock or so, and maybe to New York City around 7 o'clock, and Long Island a little bit after that. Then the line really gets going, actually strengthens as it moves across Long Island and southeastern New England. I wonder whether I may wind up seeing more out of this than I would have seen from any summertime thunderstorm the entire summer season.
Well, you mentioned a few minutes ago about you can recall a few severe weather events in November, and the one that always stands out in my mind is the one that we had in November of '89, and sadly led to the death of a number of young children at school. This was, I think, the Thursday or Friday before Thanksgiving,
Right.
and that storm ushered in a blast of frigid air, which lasted from Thanksgiving. We had a snowstorm on Thanksgiving morning, all the way into December, one of the coldest months I could ever remember in my life. And you figured that after all of that, we were going to have a good old fashioned snowy, cold, frigid winter. And yet, right after New Year's Eve, everything flipped again, and we had unseasonable warmth for the rest of the winter season, which only goes to prove that you just don't know from one moment to the next sometimes.
You
But that
don't,
that was all
and
ushered in by that massive. I think they estimated or they guesstimated in the aftermath that squall line that came through that Friday did not have tornadoes, but it had tremendous microburst activity associated with it, which led to the collapse of a wall in a school in upstate New York while kids were having their lunch, and that'll always remain in my mind as the definitive November severe outbreak. Although we don't know what's going to happen this evening, we'll see.
we'll see. I just pulled up the 700 millibar chart, just looking at the jet streaks. Um, some pretty hefty wind gusts at that level, at the 10,000 foot level, late this evening as this front goes by of 50 and 60 knots. So you're definitely going to see some of that wind mixing down as this thing moves on through. And as I said, at least from the standpoint of the NAM, it gets stronger. I'm going to jump to the 3 kilometer NAM because that's usually good, or at least it's better when it comes to these sorts
Defining
of events.
defining adverse
The
convective.
small scale stuff.
Right. And if I remember the one I looked at last night, if there was any skinnier, snakier squall line.
Yeah,
If you think about
I
it,
got it on today's run the same, Joe. I mean, really, it is. It's those skinny squall lines you got to worry about.
yes,
Okay, not the fat ones; it's the thin ones because
right,
it's like the end of a whip when it goes on through.
right, right.
And you see it here. I mean, the NAM 3 at least would lead you to believe that it's going to get pretty rocky, uh, particularly as the line comes out of eastern Pennsylvania. It actually strengthens as it moves eastward across the Hudson Valley and across southern New England, Long Island, and southeastern New England, and even up into southern New Hampshire and Maine. So this is very very strong here. And after that, of course, the lake effect machine gets turned on for a few days because it does look like we're going to see a stair step down to the coldest weather of the autumn season so far, in my never to be humble opinion, of course.
Yes, yes, it most definitely is that. But again, as we've said recently, as cold as and intense as this outbreak is going to be, not going to last very long. It's not going to be anything prolonged. It'll be maybe a couple of days, and then immediately we start warming up again by the end of the week into the next weekend. And Scott Briller mentions both on the chat board and he also in personal messages to me, Joe. I don't know to you maybe that the Climate Prediction Center has taken the uh, projection of high probability of above normal temperatures all the way to the 11th of December. In fact, this opened my eyes. This is on the 3 to 4 week prog. They have a broad area of 70% above normal probability in the middle of the country for places like Iowa and Missouri and Kansas. And I said to my wife, I said, you have to be very confident to say 70% 3 to 4 weeks in advance. I think what they're indicating is that even as we move into the middle part of December, we're still going to see, at least in the eastern half of the country, some very mild, unusually mild temperatures.
Well, in the world according to them, yes, that is what they are forecasting, and I don't think it's inconsistent with any of uh, the models that the long range models or the climate models, which have really shown very little change. I did notice though over the last couple of days that the overall pattern uh, seems to be a little bit more relaxed, and I could be wrong, but certainly wouldn't be the first time. But the ridge in the east is not quite as well developed as we saw this week and back in the days of Epsilon at the beginning of the month. I would also point out that one of the caveats in this long range forecast, because we've seen it what happened with Epsilon, where the models didn't even have that storm. It wound up being briefly, I believe it got to, if I remember correctly, it may have briefly got to being a major, and I've said how it basically flipped the entire weather pattern across the North Atlantic and North America from a colder one to a warmer one. So we have to allow for the possibility, I think, that there might be a tropical storm or three that are not being shown that could wind up to be wild cards in how the upper air takes shape. So bearing that in mind. But I'm just kind of running through last night's GFS because at least this one goes out to 360. The new one's not quite out that far yet. The flow is, the ridge is kind of flat down across from Mexico to the southeast, but there's enough of a ridge there so that it keeps most of the Canadian jet up into southern Canada. The models were kind of hinting at, maybe pressures rising across the North Atlantic and across the Arctic region on several runs late this week. And of course, naturally, it goes right back to a lower pressure pattern across the Arctic region again and throughout Greenland. So, I was just kind of looking at things yesterday and thinking, well, I wonder whether this might indicate maybe towards we get into December that we might see something change. But this persistent pattern of ridge in the east. I'm sorry, ridge in the east and trough in the west. I think you know if Wales it displays its ugly head again. Although it does get trough does get some troughing does get into the east. you don't have any. There's no blocking. There's no cross-polar flow. You don't have a true connection up into northern Canada. So until you do, you just have to go with persistence, I guess.
Somebody on the chat board mentioned about on the long range European that in January there was some indications of some stratospheric warming, and maybe perhaps that will force some of the colder air up north southward into the United States. The general idea, the general consensus has been a warm start to the winter would have flipped sometime either in January or February to colder conditions. So maybe that, I mean, we know that it can't stay warm for
Forever.
the entire winter, right? We do know
Right.
that.
We in theory that
Ah,
that is the
you know
case.
what it's gonna, you know what it's doing. It's gonna stay warm until mid-April, and then it's gonna turn cold, and then we'll have the late April blizzard.
Well, the Mother's Day storm.
Yeah,
So running through the surface map on the GFS, and I'll go down to the new one because I think we have enough of it to take it out at least a week. And we all know how credible it is in week number 2. So here's our little cold front that goes on by. It's Joe. We're going to be windy here from the northern mid-Atlantic up through New England, probably into Wednesday, into certainly through the daytime on Wednesday, because the gradient is just going to stay tight, and we have another cold front that comes through on Tuesday that brings down the coldest air. And here it is. I got the map for Monday evening here on the surface map. I'm going to change the color. Let's go to a blue, or is that cyan? No matter. Uh, to quote the Mercedes commercial. But there's your secondary front that's going to be coming through, and that probably will trigger off some lake effect in upstate New York and in western Pennsylvania. See, the model does do that on Tuesday. Not a whole lot, but it's something for the snow lovers there. And then the coldest air comes in Tuesday night. I thought Wednesday morning there's a chance that everybody could be down in the 20s. Maybe the warmest spots will be up close to 30. And again, Wednesday night into Thursday morning looks colder. But by then, the high's already getting ready to go out off the Carolinas. The west wind is about to take over. And we should warm up next weekend, late next week, starting Friday, and probably through next weekend and into the start of Thanksgiving week.
right. It looks like it's going to be as we lead into. It's hard to believe Thanksgiving week. My goodness, next Thursday we. And if I'm correct, since I think last year we had an early Thanksgiving, the early Thanksgiving is immediately followed by a late Thanksgiving, or about as late as it can possibly come. We're already running through this month of November like it was nothing.
I
It's
know it's just flying. By the way, take a look at the 186-hour GFS, and you'll notice in the Bahamas there's some kind of system there. The GFS has been trying to show something actually trying to form east of the Bahamas later next week. So if there's any, this is why I have to say that it's hard to it's not hard to envision that we could wind up with another tropical storm or 2 or 3 over the next few weeks, because if the overall pattern isn't really changing, then what's to stop it from one last hurrah in this record-breaking season? By the way,
and
meanwhile,
that would be Kappa, by the way.
yes, we have Kappa, Lambda, and what follows after Lambda?
Kappa, Lambda, Mu, 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 and then Nu.
Is it Mu or
And
Mu?
I don't know. In
Because
fact,
then
Lonnie Quinn is saying that we're mispronouncing Iota. He claims that the Greeks, um, the Greeks pronounce it differently.
Well, how do
Yoda,
they pronounce it?
Yoda.
Oh, Yoda.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's fine.
You know who we have to ask to be the judge here? Nick Gregory, if we, because he's Greek. But
Well,
I mean,
Nicholas does have an open invite to come on this show,
yes.
but his bosses might be afraid to let him go on because we're so popular. I'm sorry, you know me, Joe. I'm just subtle like a garlic sandwich.
Yeah. Leon Probinski says, I believe we had a few inches of snow 2 years ago on this day Yes, Leon, we well remember that, especially if you were among those who took 5 and 6 hours to get home because your local municipality did not listen to Joe and Joe the day before and treat their roads.
By the way, I want to just say I got to say a hello to my good friend and uh, my former producer. We were attached to the hip back in my Pix days, but my buddy Mike Leona's on, and I just wanted to acknowledge him.
Hey,
Big hello, Michael. We
hey.
heart you as always.
Is he still there at Pix?
I believe so. I think he still does. He produces on weekends. He
Oh,
used to
how
produ-
lovely that.
he used to produce my weathercast, and we had so much fun. I could tell you stories.
Well,
We
there
had
was an equal level of respect, Joe. I mean,
clearly.
you knew that you were speaking with somebody, Michael, who knew his weather very well and could make the forecast very well.
Oh
And
yeah, but that
Michael
never
certainly knew of your
that.
reputation. Now today, I'm sure that Michael still has that vast reputation and knowledge of meteorological knowledge, but who can he share it with?
You're bad.
And
You're
I'm only going to go that
bad.
far.
You're a
I'm only
bad
going to go that
person.
far.
You are being bad. We're both being bad today on a Sunday. All right. Well, watching. Oh God, and we can't. And you think we have trouble getting guests on the show now? Um, so,
I think we
um,
just got a big red heart from Michael
oh, we did.
on
Oh,
the
yes,
chat.
he did. That's my Michael. That is
He
my
he knows
Michael.
he knows the what we are alluding to.
We had a lot of he and I had a lot of fun over the years there.
I'm sure you did.
Oh yeah, especially when the Sopranos were on, right before showtime, because that took precedent. Take a look at later this week in the West. We've got storminess that continues. The WPC loaded with moisture there, and the snows up in the northern Rockies. Uh, no big systems going forward at the end of next week. It looks like another cold front approaches sometime. I don't know, late next week. There's actually a weak little front that comes through Thursday night into early Friday. It's basically a warm front, and then the next cold front will have to wait to the beginning of Thanksgiving week. And then the models have been trying to show something for Thanksgiving Day, either moving into the east or going up into the lakes. And I think based on the upper air pattern, you have to think that it would want to go up toward the lakes rather than come into the east. But we'll see, but that's how I would that's kind of how I would play it as far as the future going forward. I also want to, by the way, take a look, and this is something that I the folks that are into the stratosphere, and I did mention this to Bill Goodman yesterday, who, by the way, is working on his. He's getting a lot of information about things that Joe and I brought up in our conversation with him that we taped but had no audio. So uh, he will.
Silent radio, Joe.
Yes, it was. It was one of from the standpoint of silent radio, it was the best silent radio you could have possibly imagined. But one of the things I want to talk about with him, I've been noticing this, and oftentimes, it's been said, the folks that follow the stratosphere stuff say whatever happens up there, usually takes a little more, takes a couple of weeks for it to translate down to the surface, if it does at all, because we saw what happened last year, or I mean a couple of years ago. But one of the things regarding the look of this is that the polar vortex is wrapped up like a tight ball up in the Arctic region, which explains why that's where all the cold air is. But one thing I noticed, and I'm just going to see if the overnight, and this overnight run did do this, so it just kind of continues this idea. It does suddenly decide to drop this was something that Larry Cosgrove pointed out. The run of this particular run of the GFS takes the stratosphere polar vortex from the north coast of Siberia and suddenly drives it down toward northeastern Canada, far northeastern Canada. But it's this was something that he pointed out is if the polar vortex is going to be playing a role in the wintertime, you want to see it move away from Siberia and pivot toward eastern Canada and not toward western Canada. And it does look like that's what the PV is trying to do here. Now, we're talking at the end of this forecast period is December 1st. It would suggest that maybe if you give it a couple of weeks lag time to work its way down to the bottom of the atmosphere, you're talking about something changing along around the middle of December overall.
Notice how it doesn't so much move away from the northern coastline of Siberia, but it kind of elongates, if you will. And maybe if it's Joe, if it's stretched out more than what it's showing now, maybe it'll actually split.
Yeah, well,
I don't
there's
know.
no sign of any warming here, but who knows? By the way, Mike says that it's Mayu, not Mu.
Oh, okay.
It's Mayu. He says, I'm not old enough to forget it represents the coefficient of friction. Well, Michael, we are old enough to forget that it represents the coefficient of friction.
So if we don't get, we're not saying, but I didn't say mu, I said mu.
Right, but he says it's
Mu. It's
Mayu.
Mayu. You know, you pronounce it one way, and other people pronounce some things the other way. I mean, again, pronouncing it Iota or Yoda or whatever, Mu or Mayu. Why couldn't they just go with a bunch of new names instead of the Greek alphabet?
Well, I said, why can't we don't? This is 15 years since the last time we had to use the Greek alphabet. Why don't they just come up with like 2 or 3 alternate lists that they could jump to in the event that they have to go to it? Now they're going to have to. I don't know what they're going to do, Joe. Are they going to retire Ada because of its impact in Central America? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Or
they'll say Ada 2020.
I understand that, but there would have been no need to do it if they would just pick some names and just make an alternative list.
Maybe they should have just picked up with the next list for 2021.
Well, that's what they do in the West Pacific.
Yeah,
they just got this running list, and then wherever they they used to do it that way. I don't know if they changed it, but it's wherever they stop in one year, then they pick up from there for the next. Because for them, it's not unusual to have 20 or 30 storms over the course of a year.
Right.
For us, it's a little strange. And by the way, speaking of strange, we're back up full screen, just so you know.
Yes.
So I have, by the way, on the stove. I got up early this morning, and I'm making. Now I know there's the ongoing debate as an Italian. Did you call it sauce when you were growing up, or did you call it gravy? I will tell you that I, being a first generation born here, because my parents were in their 20s when they came to this country in the late 1950s. So I grew up with a lot of Italian in my house, and people that spoke it and only spoke Italian, including my grandparents when they came in the 60s. So we never called it sauce or gravy. In Italy, you would call it salsa, okay, or just drop the end of the vowel la salsa. But we would call it salsa, or if there is meat in it, which is what I have today, I've got meat in mine. It's called ragu, which is not to be confused with that abomination that you find on supermarket shelves. That if you showed up in any respectable home that has a Sunday dinner like this with an Italian in it, they would act as if you stabbed them in the heart. I know my mother would just not. She just couldn't be within 100 feet of a jar of ragu.
Now, the question here with the salsa,
Mm-hmm.
you only had that twice a year then, right?
What do you mean?
On June 21st and December 22nd? The winter and the summer salsa?
Oh, the solstice. Okay. All right.
We actually had, when I was working at a private weather forecasting service, we had one guy in the sales department who'd come out and he would tell me, we have a client who wants to know at exactly what time the salsa is going to be this year. And I said, the what? The salsa, the first day of summer. He actually said that.
Anyway. Did they take him away to an asylum afterward?
Yes.
Oh, good
Of
Lord.
course, the very best sauce or salsa is Rayo's.
I will tell you, I've had Rayo's. I've had it. It's a little watery for me, in my never to be humble opinion.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
It's a little watery for me. Um, I actually the sauce that I made a couple of weeks ago it was one of the, I don't know why, just it was, I guess all of the stars were in alignment, but I think it was probably one of the best sauces I've made, and I had a lot left, so I because I made a huge pot of it, so I stored it in the freezer, and I've been using as starters ever since. So I'm going to be curious to see what I got when it already cooked all morning. It's just sitting on the top of the stove now for the next few hours and just kind of absorbing all the flavors.
My
And
I At
we'll
my
see what
grandmother's
happens.
house, on my grandmother's house, we used to have dinner on Sundays at 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
I can
so
hardly
that was in my house too, Joe. 1 o'clock.
I could hardly believe that in an hour and 15 minutes I'd be sitting down for dinner.
And
I only
you know
woke up a
something?
little.
It was so common for me to do it, and I mentioned it to some of my friends who weren't Italian, and they thought we were weird.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh,
Sunday dinner was a big deal. I miss the ones where my my usually on Sunday dinner my grandparents were over, and I do miss that. That was a very good that's a very very good time in your life. So if you have you youngins that are out there on the chat board or watching this show, you got your grandparents around. You make sure you spend time with them, because I did, and I'm happy I did, because I had them, Joe, until I was well into my 30s. So I was very lucky. I it wasn't uncommon for us as kids that a lot of kids, their grandparents had died before they were even born.
right.
So
Right.
if you
Well,
got
we had
great,
dinner. We had dinner at 1 o'clock, and then at 7 o'clock we would have the leftover.
yeah,
We would have like an evening meal. I used to watch Lassie and My Favorite Martian
yep.
while chowing down on the leftover spaghetti and meatballs or spaghetti and sausage. So it was like having two dinners in one day on
Did you get to drink? Did you get to drink wine?
they had wine at the table. I was not a wine drinker. Every once in a great while
But I mean,
I
as a
had
kid, did
one.
they let you drink wine?
Oh, they would have let me drink wine if I
Oh,
wanted
sure.
wine. Yeah,
I
sure.
wasn't
Sure.
crazy about it as a kid. Sometimes my mother would mix it with water, and I would have it with dinner. Of course, she'd go to jail now
Yeah.
if you did that in this fabulous world we live in. But no matter, the that was part of Italian tradition. Was a healthy glass of wine, because in the Italian culture, as is in the French culture and a few others, wine is central to the meal, and it's also healthy, believe it
Right.
or not.
Right.
So get over it.
And at my wife my in-laws, and they're German, they're not Italian, but they had dinner not at 1 o'clock, but more like 2:30 or 3 o'clock. So still, even in that culture, an early dinner
Yeah,
for Sunday. I think a lot of cultures had Sunday dinner rather early in the day.
because Sunday's an easy sort of day, and you're not working, and you can plan a nice meal, and I love it. For me, I love cooking, so I really enjoy it very
That's
much.
why I say you should open. You got so many weather programs. You should have your own, daily.
Well,
You could
there
compete
is
with
a
the Food
playlist,
Network.
Joe. There's a playlist on my YouTube channel that has some cooking videos that I did do, so they are there.
Yeah,
The problem is when I'm cooking, I need somebody to shoot the video,
right.
and I also have to edit it, because there's the before and the after. So
Yes.
I got to figure out among all the other things I'm doing, that's another thing on my list of things to learn, is how do I edit two videos and glue them together.
You'll be the
I
new
have an
Sue
editing
Ann Niven.
program. I just have to sit down and figure it out.
You'll be the new Sue Ann Nivens.
Oh, she was the best. I she was I Betty White, which is who was brilliant. I love that character, Sue Ann, on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Let's do a little Briller Jeopardy as we're coming up close to the top of the hour here. So let's get that done. Are you ready,
Yes,
Mr. Ray? Okay, so just give me 1 second. I got to fix something here.
and Scott told me on the chat board that tomorrow night I'm the one with the questions. So
Okay, that works for
if
me.
I can find Scott, if I can find them, I'll use them.
Who is the right? Who is the only? Well, open up your messenger and let it sit there because the wheel. You probably can't see it, but the wheel is turning, the circle of death, in order to bring down the the older messages. Question 1 today, Joe, is who is the only honeymooner star ever to receive residuals?
That would be Alice.
Audrey
Audrey
Meadows.
Meadows.
Correct.
She was smart enough to work out residuals, because who would have thought back in 1955 that reruns would still be running in 2020?
Yeah, I think now, of course, you don't get residuals once you leave this earth, but I think over time the amount of money you get is less and less. Like you get more money at the front end of the run of the run, and less as it goes by. I think that's how it works. Also, in those days, very few television shows the actors got residuals for. The I Love Lucy cast got, well, they got residuals. They were one of the first to do it. But there were a lot of shows that the actors didn't get residuals for, and some of those shows have gone on to being somewhat iconic, and unfortunately they didn't profit from that.
Right.
Anyway, that was my little, sermon.
Residuals.
Right. How many Stewart's restaurants are there in the United States? Oh, I'm sorry. How many Stewart restaurants are in New Jersey?
In New Jersey,
Yeah.
not in the whole United States. Well, ah, God, let me pick a number out of midair here because I
Wait a
have
minute.
no
Hold
clue.
on a second, because he says the question, the way he wrote it, is how many Stewart restaurants are in New Jersey? Question mark. And then he has the answer in parentheses, but the answer is, it says the number in the U, and it says US. So let's skip that, okay? Let's
Okay.
skip that. Since 1870 in Central Park, how many Thanksgiving have had at least a trace of snow?
Well, I know at least one. Actually, in Central Park now, because I remember there was one fairly recently, I think like 5 or 7 years ago, we had several inches of snow up here where I am. I'm not sure if it accumulated to any degree down in New York, but at least it should have been a trace of snow. I'm going to say, let's see, there's 169 years of records, and maybe it happens like once every 10 years or something like that. I'll say 18.
Okay, so remember your answer there, because I have to go to the other page and get the answers. How many Walmart stores are there in the United States? And you're given a window here, so you can get the number right. You have to be within 500.
It's kind of like on The Price is Right, that thing with the red box that slowly goes up the range.
You mean the yodeler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. I'll say 4,000.
And since 1870, how many Decembers have gotten at least 20 inches? You got a whole bunch of questions here.
At least 20 inches.
Right.
I'll say 7.
All right.
No.
So the final question today is name the 5 state capitals that begin with the letter A.
Albuquerque.
Right. Albany. Right.
I'm thinking first.
This is where my mind is like circling every state, and I'm trying to get a.
How about Michigan, Ann Arbor?
Okay.
What else? No, I know Atlanta.
Maryland, Annapolis.
Annapolis, Maryland.
Annapolis.
Yeah. Annapolis.
Annapolis. And That's 4, right?
And I'm thinking somewhere out like in the Midwest.
Well, we know it's not Ohio.
No.
It's not Indiana.
Austin? Could Austin be it?
Austin, yes. So that's 5. So who are we missing? We're
Was it
missing
5 or
1.
6?
He said there's 5. So we got all 5.
Yes. Well, we took a shot at 5, whether or not any of them are actual state. I know at least one of them is a state capital, but
Okay, so he's got to send me the answers for the other ones because I don't have them here. Or if I did, it's on the other. Let me just check real quick to see if I sent them to the other platform. Da 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 da. And that other platform just happens to be my weather platform on Patreon, which you can subscribe to for just $2 a month at patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Chaffee, so you can get weather all the time. There it is. I can always work in a shameless self-promotion.
yes.
Okay. So my circle of death is going around on that other place where he said to be the answers. So I'll just have to wait for this to load. And here we go. We have the answers. Stand by because these could be riveting. So we have Audrey Meadows. So
Right.
there are 38 Stewarts in New Jersey. So I'm going to assume that that's how he worded the question. So 38 Stewarts in New Jersey. The Walmart question.
What did I say? 4,000?
Did you say 4,000 even?
Yes.
Wah, 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 wah. 4,756.
So I missed by 256.
56.
Yeah.
The trace of snow November question
What did I
is
say? I said 18.
17.
Oh,
Wah,
well,
wah, 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 wah. Price
I
is
was
Right
over.
rules means you went over.
Yes.
And the number of December 20, what was it? The last question was December 20 inches?
I said, I know I
Yeah,
went much too high.
December's that had at least 20 inches.
I think I went much too high. I said 8.
You went over, but not by much. 6.
Oh, okay.
6. So there you go. That worked.
And box 505 on the chat board is saying it's Santa Fe and not Albuquerque. So
Oh, so that's 4. Oh my, no, that's so we didn't get the 5th. Oh, here we go. So
and and Maine,
oh.
Christopedia said it's Augusta. What did we say for
Augusta.
Maine?
Augusta is the one we didn't get.
Yeah.
So it was Annapolis. Well, no, we also didn't get Atlanta. Atlanta's the capital of Georgia.
I said I don't think Atlanta is the capital, but yeah, okay, so there it is.
Albany, New York, Augusta, and Austin. So we were, not too shabby. I
Not too
think.
bad.
We do better than most when it comes to this sort of stuff. I think once upon a
Christopedia says Anchorage. Did we miss that?
Anchorage, yes, we missed it. No, I thought Juneau. I said Juneau's the
That's right,
capital of
Juneau.
Alaska.
That's right.
So no, it's not Anchorage.
So Miss K, you're wrong.
Yeah. We're geography shaming people here on this show. We shouldn't be doing that. No geography shaming. We all have geography issues in one form or another. I never did until very recently because my memory is fading. So, but
Well, didn't you have? Yeah, I'm sure you had. When you were growing up, didn't you have one of those wooden puzzles where you have to put the United States together and they have all the states
oh
put
yeah,
together? And of
sure,
course, you learned the shape. You learned about the states by remembering the shape.
yeah.
Texas being the most outlandish one.
Right. Well, I don't think they teach that sort of stuff anymore.
Yeah. Always confused. Always confused Wyoming with Colorado.
Yeah. All right. So the Joe and Joe Weather Show today, as always, brought to you by our friends at Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest rock salt provider. They're getting ready for winter, so be sure you're getting ready by getting all your winter storm equipment, supplies, so that you can get through those winter storms when we get them. And well, or if we get them, but assuming that we get something. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, just north of the Southern State Parkway, 631-756-1125, or go to the website omnitruevalue.com. So tomorrow, regular time, 7:30 Eastern for you and me.
Well, it'll be 7:30 tomorrow evening, and we'll probably have the post-mortem to whatever hits us this evening. So for those of you who got in a late start and did not hear the initial bevy of comments about tonight, anytime I think between 8 o'clock tonight and midnight, watch out, sharp cold front, strong gusty winds, potential of brief heavy rain, and maybe even some lightning and thunder too, and we'll see how we all fare after that come tomorrow night.
You got it, buddy. So everybody that's watching us today, thanks for being here. As always, enjoy the rest of your Sunday and be safe. And Joe and I will see you tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time. Bye-bye.
Au reservoir. Da, 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 da.